I'd always been curious about the old house on the hill. The structure stood ominously against the skyline, its silhouette a menacing mix of sharp angles and dilapidated charm. It was big and scary, with tall towers that reached into the clouds and pointy roofs that looked like the spires of a dark castle. People in town whispered legends of its haunting past. They said it was cursed, a place where spirits lingered and tormented the living. Despite their warnings, my skepticism pushed me forward. I felt a magnetic pull towards it, a need to see for if the tales were true. As I drove the winding path that led to the house, shadows seemed to dance in the corner of my vision, disappearing when I turned to look. I parked my car a short distance away, the gravel crunching under the tires, breaking the haunting silence. The air was chilly, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones, and a mist hung low, wrapping the house in a ghostly veil. With every step towards the grand front door, my heart pounded louder in my chest. I reached out, my hand slightly as it touched the ancient wood of the door. It groaned under my touch, a sound that echoed through the empty halls as I pushed it open. The interior was shrouded darkness, the only light coming from the cracks in the boarded-up windows. The smell of mold and decay filled the air, making me wrinkle my nose. Cobwebs draped over every corner, and the dust was so thick it covered the floor like a blanket. Venturing deeper, I explored the shadowy corridors and abandoned rooms, each step stirring up clouds of dust. The house seemed to whisper with the echoes of 1,000 voices, an eerie chorus that filled the stale air. I could almost hear the faint laughter and cries of the past, as if the house itself was recounting its own sorrowful tale. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the hallway, and I shivered. I felt an unmistakable sensation of being watched, scrutinized from the darkness. I spun around, heart racing, but found only emptiness. Yet, the feeling persisted. A gaze as tangible as if someone stood right before me. I walked around, my footsteps echoing off the walls. I felt like someone was watching me, but every time I turned around there was no one there. I found a secret door, hidden behind a bookshelf. It was small and narrow, barely wide enough for a person, concealed cleverly by a facade of books. As I pulled on the faux book titled Secrets of the Hidden, the shelf silently swung open, revealing a shadowy passage. Ducking to avoid a nasty bump on the head, I squeezed through the gap. The air was musty, filled with the scent of old wood and forgotten tales. A creaky wooden staircase, barely lit by the faint glow of my flashlight, spiraled down into an enveloping darkness. I hesitated, my mind racing with thoughts of eerie legends and hidden treasures. Despite the fear prickling at the back of my neck, curiosity urged me forward. Each step echoed ominously. I descended, my hand gripping the cold, damp railing. The light from above faded, swallowed by the thick shadows below. At the bottom of the stairs, I paused, letting eyes adjust. The room stretched out long and narrow, a forgotten chamber that time had ignored. It was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones, and damp, with moisture clinging to the stone walls and low ceiling. My breath appeared as a mist in the air, and each exhale sounded loud in the silence. Scattered throughout the room were relics of the past. Old, leather-bound books that whispered secrets when opened. Strange tools whose uses were lost to time, and artifacts that seemed as though they were stolen from the dusty corners of a museum. I wandered through the room, my footsteps cautious and quiet, trying to take it all in. Each object told a story, a fragment of history preserved in this hidden underground archive. I found myself lost in wonder and awe, exploring this treasure trove of the past. Suddenly I heard a whisper in my ear. "Leave now while you still can." I spun around, but there was no one there. The whisper seemed to come from all around me, echoing off the walls. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease, telling myself it was just the wind or my imagination. But the whisper came again, louder this time. "Leave now while you still can." As my heartbeat quickened, I pondered my next move. Should I heed the mysterious advice, or push forward? Driven by my insatiable curiosity, my decision was made the moment another whisper caressed my ear, each syllable dripping with urgency. I tried to brave, but I was scared. The air grew colder, the shadows seemed to stretch towards me like fingers of the damned. I heard footsteps behind me, soft and stealthy, but when I whirled around, I was met with nothing but the empty corridor and the flicker of the dying light bulbs overhead. Determined to uncover the source of these disembodied whispers, I continued deeper into the mansion. With each step, the atmosphere thickened, oppressive, as if the very walls were closing in. Every room I entered was filled with weird and sinister objects. dolls with eyes that followed me, paintings that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of my eye, clocks that ticked but never talked. The house's history plagued my once noble family vanished without a trace, leaving behind rumors of dark rituals and madness. My flashlight flickered, threatening to plunge me into darkness. As I passed an ancient mirror, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure standing behind me. I spun around again, but there was nothing. Was this a trick of the mind or something far more sinister? I pressed on, driven by a mixture of fear and fascination, each room revealing more horrors. A library with books that screamed when opened, a dining hall where ghostly figures danced in a macabre waltz, and a nursery where the cribs rocked gently, as if comforting children. I wanted to leave, yet I moved onward, compelled by the need to understand, to discover the truth hidden in the depths of this haunted place. I started to feel like I was in a nightmare and I couldn't wake up. Then I saw a figure in the shadows. It was tall and pale, with eyes that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. The air turned cold and a shiver ran down my spine. I tried to run, my breath quickening, but it felt as though my feet were bound to the ground with invisible chains. Panic surged through me as the figure moved closer silently, form becoming clearer with every step. Suddenly my vision began to blur and my surroundings faded into darkness. Everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I found lying on the cold, hard floor. My head throbbed painfully and the silence around me felt oppressive. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I realized the room was barren, with no sign of the eerie figure or any other soul. The only evidence of the earlier encounter was the echo of vanishing footsteps that seemed to have left in haste. I stood up cautiously, my body still reeling from the shock. Determined to find a way out, I approached the nearest door only to find it locked. I tried another, then another, but to no avail. It became clear that the house was not just a house, but a labyrinth designed to confuse and captivate. Corridors stretched endlessly, each turn and doorway leading to more of the same. Endless hallways adorned with old portraits whose eyes seemed to follow my every move, and rooms that were both opulent and decayed, untouched by time yet untouched by life. As hours slipped by, a sense of desperation to envelop me. The windows revealed no daylight, just the continuous, oppressive night that had settled outside. My legs grew tired, my mind weary from the constant tension. Yet, surrender not an option. Each door I opened, each hallway I ventured down, I hoped would lead to my escape, but all I found were more puzzles, more mysteries. I was lost. I wandered around for what felt like hours, but every door I opened led to more hallways and more rooms. Then I heard the whisper again. You should have listened. The sound seemed to slither through the dark, empty hallways of the old mansion, wrapping its icy tendrils around my heart. Each syllable echoed, bouncing off the aged walls and the boarded-up windows, finding its way back to my ears. The air grew colder, and the faint light from my flashlight began to flicker. Shadows danced across the dilapidated, forming menacing shapes that seemed to watch my every move. I swallowed hard, trying to muster the courage to move, but my feet felt glued to the rotten wooden floor. The whisper had turned into a chorus of hushed tones, rising and falling like the breath of the house itself. You should have listened, they repeated, over and over, a sinister lullaby that filled the space with dread. The history of the house flashed through my mind, tales of and ancient curses that I had laughed off earlier, dismissing them as mere ghost stories. Now each story seemed as real as the fear coursing through my veins. I was indeed trapped, with no idea how to escape the spectral prison I had walked into. Desperate, I called out, "Who's there?" But silence answered, thick and suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that the house wasn't just haunted, it was alive. And it knew I was there. The darkness seemed to close in around me, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I was scared, and I didn't know what to do. The house was dark and scary, and I was all alone. I kept wandering, trying to find a way out. Each door I opened led to another corridor, darker and more ominous than the last. Shadows moved along the walls, seeming to sneer at my plight. Ghostly shapes hovered at the edge of my sight, elusive and unsettling. Eerie noises resounded down the passageways, mixing with indistinct whispers that filled the cold air. The atmosphere thickened with a tangible dread, intensifying the chill that pierced me. Each whisper seemed to echo my name, my fear. The corridors seemed to stretch into infinity, a maze designed to trap me. With every turn, the sinister whispers grew, and the spectral figures seemed closer. Panic set in as I questioned my reality. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I stumbled upon a room filled with strange and sinister objects. Dim light flickered, casting shifting shadows that seemed to whisper from the dark corners. Amidst the gloom, a cluster of brittle bones formed a macabre display, each shard whispering tales of horror. Dust-laden artifacts of unknown origins and ambiguous purposes crowded the aged shelves, sending shivers down my spine. Dominating the room, a rusty iron rack stood as a grim centerpiece, its surface webbed with cobwebs that fluttered slightly, as if breathing. The air was cold and heavy, loaded with the scent of mold and long-forgotten secrets, creating an aura of dread that was almost tangible. I knew then was in the heart of the haunted house and I might never escape. As I turned to leave, I saw the figure again. It was closer this time, eerily silent in the shadows under the moon's glow. Its eyes, shining with an unnatural light, seemed to cut through the night, paralyzing me with fear. My pulse thundered in my ears as terror gripped me. An overwhelming urge to run consumed me, but my feet felt as if they were shackled to the freezing ground. Approaching slowly, the figure glided toward me with disturbing grace. Its thin, bony fingers reached out, chilling the air around us further. As its hand touched my cheek with a ghostly caress, the world around me faded to darkness. It brushed against my cheek ever so lightly and everything went. When I woke up, I was back in my car, parked in front of the house. The morning sun bathed the quiet street in a gentle light, stretching shadows across the neatly trimmed lawns. The home stood eerily still, its calm exterior belying the turmoil that had unfolded hours earlier. Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to recall the events that led me back to my seat behind the wheel. Vague images flickered through my thoughts, sinister shadows moving silently, eerie whispers floating in the air, and an overwhelming sensation of being chased through endless dark corridors. Time had stretched, every second a battle against rising panic. Now, in the safety of daylight, my heart still raced with unspoken fears. Shaken to my core, I turned the key in the ignition, my hands shaking visibly. I drove away as fast as I could, never looking back. I never went back to that again. The night I spent in that old mansion changed me. Terror gripped me as unexplained whispers filled the air, the very marrow in my bones. When I told the locals, they just laughed, dismissing my fear as fantasy. Yet the dread was palpable. The touch of cold, unseen hands and the eerie whispers seemed to echo through the halls, embodying a haunting presence that lingered long after I fled. I tried to rationalize it, to dismiss as a trick of the mind, but the fear remained, a constant reminder of the unknown that lurked within those walls. The house on the hill is haunted, and I'm lucky to be alive. Thanks for watching my video. If this eerie tale sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit the like button. I'm eager to hear which part frightened you the most, so please share in the comments. Your insights help shape our content and are immensely valuable. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales. By activating the notification bell, you'll stay updated with our latest eerie narratives and exciting videos. Ready for your next creep-filled adventure? Dive with us into the shadowy realms of the in our upcoming stories. See you in the next video.